My name is Bill Fortenberry, and welcome to Load In, Load Out, a tour story podcast produced in Athens, Georgia, in association with Kindercore Industries. For our pilot episode, Cash and Ryan sat down with Michael Lachowski and Vanessa Briscoe from the legendary Athens band PYLON. They have a new live album coming out. It's being issued by the folks over at Chunklet and captures the band in 1983 at the Mad Hatter. With the release of a live album and the upcoming performances from Vanessa and the PYLON Reenactment Society, we thought it'd be a great chance to catch up with these guys and ask them what they've got coming up.
Well, what I've got coming up is just being excited about this record coming out. Vanessa can talk about performing with the PYLON Reenactment Society. But my name's Michael. I'm the bass player in PYLON, and this live album is a double LP vinyl, black vinyl, clear or magenta, and all of those come in a gatefold LP jacket that I got to design, which was fun. And
nice.
Inside is a insert with a bunch of credits on it that wouldn't fit on the back cover, but also one of those little slips that you go to download the digital part.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have a turntable and you want the object,
the beautiful package.
You could have that, or you could just go to iTunes and get it. And it's officially coming out on Randy's birthday, our guitar player who passed away on July 25th. But a friend of mine sent me a picture today that he already got his, that he ordered it from Chunklet Industries.
Exciting.
So it's on Chunklet Industries record label. It was the whole idea of it was initiated, and the majority of the legwork and working on the getting the tracks, getting the audio and everything set up was by Henry Owens, who was a big enough fan of PYLON that when he was a teen or something, according to him, he sent us actually 2 different fan letters, and I've tried to find them.
Really?
I mean, it would mortify him if I could find them. He hopes they don't exist.
Seriously, yes.
I was hoping to, but I was actually looking in the batch of mail that came in with PYLON number 2, so I don't know if we have the fan mail from PYLON number 1 or how much of that we got.
That's funny.
So maybe he sent us 50% of our fan mail.
Sure, yeah. That's fantastic.
So anyway, the recording is the entire set. It was our last show. The reason it got audio recorded is that a video was being made at the same time, and so they didn't know which songs they'd end up using. They ended up only using 4 or so of them for the video, 4 or 5, but luckily, the entire audio, from beginning to end of the whole set was intact. And so that's what we've released, just had to scooch out some of the gaps between songs when, people were clapping or we were tuning guitars.
Sure.
Tightening up drum heads.
Drinking beer.
Yeah, you mean you didn't leave in all the weird sipping sounds and the...
It would have been more real.
Yeah.
But it was vinyl.
No,
So there's an Elvis album out there that... they wanted to release something. It was Elvis live, and it's just the in between things. It's not any of the songs. It's his words.
Didn't have the rights to release the actual
Have you ever heard
music.
about that?
I've heard of that kind of thing happening before. Yeah, that's funny.
Maybe that's another idea
Yeah.
for you guys.
I was into that for a while. My concept was being a DJ where you would hear the live sound would be you had one record player. Mm-hmm. So there'd be all that time in between while you were flipping the record over or whatever.
Yeah. People just need to get down during that time too. It's hey,
Right.
sorry, this is
Like a
can't you feel
clap
it?
track.
Right.
Anyway, so that's the record, and then maybe
Cool.
Vanessa can tell you about the shows that were put together to kind of celebrate this, which includes a screening of some of that stuff.
Yeah, July the 29th and July the 30th, we're going to have 2 PYLON release shows, and the 29th is at the Earl, and the 30th is at the 40 Watt here in Athens. Mm-hmm. And first, they're going to screen part of that Athens show movie. I'm not exactly sure. I'm sorry, I should have asked if it's Pylon and Love Tractor, but I know it's at least the Pylon footage.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be a band called Fuck Truck, who are Armstead Welford.
Oh, okay.
And some of his friends like Brian Poole.
Okay, cool.
Neat.
And they're going to be doing the music of Love Tractor. So I guess they're a Love Tractor reenactment society.
Sure, yeah.
And then the swimming pool cues will be playing. And then Pylon Reenactment Society, which is myself, and Jason Smith, and Kay Stanton, Joe Rowe, and Damon Denton.
Okay,
And
fantastic.
it'll be the same lineup both nights.
Awesome. And you guys have played some shows as that before, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. We
that's
did
great.
2 for Art Rocks.
Cool.
And then we went out with Dressy Bessie in February and played 4 shows.
Awesome.
Wow.
They were on Kindercore, which is the
Yeah.
label that I used to run, which is responsible for this podcast. So
Yeah.
a little small world. But well, that's awesome.
I
Cool.
also saw you did a couple songs with the Dead Milkmen at the Pop Fest.
Yeah, we did one, and Mike Turner had no idea that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I think he about fell out.
I bet. Yeah, that's
But they-
exciting.
They contacted me a week or two, and they were like, "We'd really love to do a Pylon song. Will you do it?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Sure," because I come up and done one song too with Mission of Burma.
Oh,
They're
wow,
like
yeah.
all old friends of ours
Sure.
from various times and places, and to just get up there and do that, they were just so excited, and then it
Yeah,
was a
that's
surprise.
Yeah,
So
it was great. It was definitely
really cool.
the highlight of that Pop Fest, which was the last Pop Fest.
The
until
last
this
one that
year.
happened, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, cool. So, since this is a Tour Stories podcast, I want to get into
I have
you guys.
one more though.
okay.
Go.
In September,
Okay.
Pylon Reenactment Society are going to be going out to the Northeast.
Awesome.
And we're going to be playing with Dressy Bessie again.
Yeah.
And also helping promote this record as best we can.
Fantastic.
Going to play Richmond, Arlington, Philadelphia, Brooklyn, and Jersey City.
Cool. That should be great.
Although there was some confusion already today. One of the clubs, the promoter put that it was Pylon coming to Philadelphia, and people were getting like all super excited.
Oh,
And I was like,
right,
no, wait a minute.
It's, yeah,
Right.
We've got to
Reenactment
get
Society,
this
yeah.
straight, like
Right.
today and right now. I
Yeah.
mean, you're going to enjoy this too, but it's not
Right.
Pylon.
Absolutely,
Right.
sure. Well, cool. That's fantastic.
So this is your
Awesome.
first time touring in a well, you did the
Second
4
time,
shows,
yeah.
right?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
How do you feel like it's been this time around now that do you feel like it's a lot different than it used to be, or do you feel like you're slipping right back into like the touring?
Well, of course, I'm older now.
Yeah.
So I'm not slipping back as easily as
Yeah.
you would, but I'm trying to take care of myself and not drink too much while I'm out there and
Yeah.
do my stretches and stuff like that.
Well, that's good. Yeah. And now, it must be, it's weird. I did most of the touring that I did in the late 90s and early 2000s, which was more or less before cell phones were prevalent and certainly before the GPS thing was everywhere. And so that was obviously is weird now. I'm sure it must be even weirder for you though. Like, we were talking to somebody else the other day about how bands don't tend to go to the wrong city or state anymore like they used to. Like I remember putting on a
Get off
couple
on the wrong
shows where
exit.
bands didn't turn up because, we thought we were in Alabama tonight or we turned at this place. And, it's like, okay. So anyway,
You also don't have to
Yeah,
carry
that's
big
a whole
atlases
set
around
of
anymore.
stories you made me think of, but we're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
going
yeah.
there right now. But
no. And it went,
but Michael
right
did
ahead.
all the booking back then, and it
Yeah.
was out on the road. He was like,
Stopping at
wait,
payphones."
there's a payphone over there. Let me get my Rolodex
Right.
out.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. I just remember doing the everybody in the band having to call home, standing in line for the payphone, and then the last person never getting to make the call because it would be like, "Sorry, we're out of time. We got to go. We got to get to the club."
Did y'all ever accidentally leave somebody behind?
Yes, I have left somebody behind before. Yes.
Not when on tour with music, but I used to race BMX bikes, and we left my brother behind, and we didn't realize it because we were in a big motor home,
Oh, no.
We would hide up in the fold up bunk bed. And we didn't notice until 2 states away that my brother was still at the Cracker Barrel. This is when I was like 10 years old.
So who was left behind? Give us that.
I remembering back when we were going through like the West. It was like during Pylon 2. It was somebody who was working for us and would stop like in the middle of the desert at the only place for 30 miles. And they were like, "Where's Tim?" And we're like, "Oh my God." And there's nowhere to turn around.
Sure,
and
yeah.
Finally we went back and he's just like standing there looking really sad in front of this place that sells cherry cider and
Yeah. Well, at least you came back.
has a jackalope display or something.
Yeah,
Right.
You don't have a cell phone, so it's not like you can call and be like, "Hey, we're sorry, we're on our way back."
Yeah. It's just you gotta sit and wait. Yeah, those were the days, weren't they?
Yeah.
So tell us how you guys got started in all of this briefly. I mean, I know you know, it's the story's out there or whatever, but if you guys want to give us a quick ramp up and then into touring, that'd be great.
Okay. Well, I guess the first band was the B-52s, and we saw them play, I guess their first shows, and it was remarkable how little they seemed to know what they were doing.
It's so refreshing though, right? I mean,
It was super exciting. I mean, I guess, it was happening right there in Athens. I suppose there's a lot of the bands that we were listening to already by that time that were known or had even a 7-inch or something out that were probably just as ill-equipped to be in a band, but they had good ideas, good energy. It was fresh.
Yeah.
It was kind of moving on past, the clutter and boring, like heavy duty, all that
Past
stuff
the
that
dark
was left over
days.
from
Right.
rock
Yeah,
and
yeah.
roll. So it was like easy to embrace it. And but then they put out a single. We were all at the Bluebird Cafe when they had their single signing party, and there's like red lipstick prints on the back of my record from
Oh, cool.
some of the members of the band. And
Yeah.
but then they went and played that song or a set in New York, and poof, they were gone out of Athens. And Randy Bewley and I were roommates. We were friends from being both in the art school, art department. And he was like, "Man, we should start a band." And I was hesitant. Like, I think it's because I didn't think I'd be able to do it. But I was like, "Oh man, everyone's already started a band. I mean, there's so many bands." And I was like reeling
so
off
funny.
all these bands that did not exist in Athens, Georgia. It's like, it's so
Right.
obvious, like it's
so obvious to be in a
done. It's
band.
been done. And he's like, "No, come on. Like in Athens, there's no
that's funny.
band, like we should be the one. I mean, somebody's got to go out and like be part of our scene and be the band." And
Right.
anyway, so it was a lot more like details, but Curtis found his way to us because I rented a studio from him, and he could hear us practicing, and it drove him crazy how like monotonous it was. It was just like these like riffs going on endlessly, and he was like, "Ah!" Like he had been in a band in Atlanta, in Marietta, Strictly American, with some of the. Not specifically, I'm not sure how many of the same people that were in Guadalcanal Diary, but I know that Murray Attaway and maybe some others, apologies to them. But anyway, it was just a high school band, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But so Curtis at least knew his way around like a basic drum kit and all that. So that was a big help.
Yeah.
And then we auditioned a few singers. We didn't like them. Toying with the idea, just going back to using like pre-recorded records and stuff in place of vocals. Because we were kind of no wave in a way to begin with, what people called experimental. And it's like, well, no, we're done experimenting because that was our performance.
Right.
So this is
That's an interesting way to put that.
experimental
I hadn't really thought of
part
it that way
was when
before.
we were composing the song, and now
Sure.
you're hearing our performance.
The experiment's over. This is
that was later when we had our singer, and our singer was Vanessa, who we thought of from art school. So all four of us were in the art department and knew each other a little bit. Randy and I, were pretty good friends for, and therefore roommates for a good while before that. So anyway, that's how we got going. And by the time we played our first show, it was February 14th in 1979. And I guess, was it not until 1980 that we had the single out? I suppose, like that winter or something like that. So he put out Cool and Dub, and then later on, the first album was called Gyrate. Second album was called Chomp, and then we broke up.
Yeah.
That's the shortest way you can
That's
tell
it.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. But during that time, so when you guys are talking about Pylon 1 and Pylon 2, are you referring to when you got back together as Pylon 2?
Yeah, because when we played this live show that is this new Pylon Live album, it was in early December of 1983, and we had no expectation that we'd ever, perform again.
So you knew that was your last show when you were doing it?
Yeah. It was announced as our last show. It was at the Mad Hatter. We chose that because it was like a big club so that we could fit in, whoever wanted to go, and also the video people that were going to take up a bunch of space and everything. So yeah, that was it. It was from 79 to end of 83.
Okay.
And it included a trip to England that was fun.
Yeah. Well, let's get into in that short time period, you guys did some
we had
incredible
plenty
touring.
of experiences.
Yeah. I mean, I just was doing some reading on it and was sort of blown away by some of the, who you were touring with and where you were touring and all those things. It must have been kind of incredible.
Yeah. To me, the weirdest thing is because I went back and did a little bit of research about us because I was giving a talk for part of the Athens Music Project called How Art Turned into Music. And I went and did like primary research to fact check that all these like things that we thought in our heads that we had always said.
Right.
I was like, did we really believe that back then or not? So I went back and read a bunch of interviews. Some of them in like smaller papers that you'd sort of forget about them, but some of those smaller papers would run like a really long version of a transcribed interview.
Sure.
And so in there was like tons of content that supported all of these, these like chestnuts that had come out of the Pylon lore that I just want to make sure they were true.
Right. No, that's always good, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was weird. But then,
Instead of being a myth.
yeah.
Right.
Or if they are a myth, keep the myth straight. Right?
Yeah.
Because there are some conflicted memories, shared memories.
Sure,
but,
absolutely.
But then in all that, I found out that like when we opened for the Gang of Four in New York, our very first time that we ever played in New York, it was, I think, August. And then when we headlined at the same club in New York, it was October or September or October. I mean, things just happened so fast.
Wow.
Yeah, it
Like
seemed
it was like
lightning
6
in a
weeks
bottle from
later, we
everything
were
that
back up there headlining. It was really
That's awesome.
it seemed natural at the time, but when I think about it now, it seems like highly compressed.
Sure, yeah. I mean, at the time you had nothing to compare it to. So.
Also, at the time, I mean, like what you were talking about forming this band and saying like, well, we could do this, like whatever. You didn't have the internet back then to be able to go and say like, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to learn how to play guitar over the internet. I'm going to learn how to play all these things. I'm going to put all this together. That's the same thing about this getting popular so quickly is that's crazy even now with the internet where everyone can hear about it immediately.
Yeah.
Like back then, that's even more amazing that like within 6 weeks, you're back up there headlining.
Well, yes and no, but like back then, there were only like in the United States, like maybe a total of 5 publications where
That's true.
content about your existence could have possibly appeared in print, pretty much, at least nationally and nationally distributed. So we went to New York, we played, and Interview Magazine, which was a monthly magazine, Andy Warhol's Interview, I think they later on called it, there was a Glenn O'Brien review of the show. It was like one short paragraph about us and one short paragraph about Gang of Four, and boom.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like that quick. And so, after that, all you have to do is call a club and say,
you thought it was
we would
already
like to
over.
be booked on a Friday, and they just book you. I mean, it was just really simple.
That's so.
So there was like
great.
a streamlined nature to even if you want to call it fame, or notoriety at that scale. Even at that low scale, there was like an immediacy as a result of the paucity of information. The fact that there were only so many avenues, and therefore it was highly vetted. So I guess an equivalent would be if you were on TV in the days of 3 networks, so you'd be seen.
Sure, absolutely, because there was a much more limited media landscape. Yeah, absolutely. Well, so all right, so getting out on the road, doing the touring. I feel like both of you are like hesitantly waiting to break into the story. So, which whoever wants to go first, I think you both have stories for us, and by all means, go ahead and let her rip.
Well, I'm going to tell my story first because it happened before what Michael's going to describe. Back in 1980 or so, my band Pylon was on a short tour through the Midwest and parts of Canada with post-punk legends, the Gang of Four. The two bands had been friends since the summer of 1979 when we had opened for them in Philadelphia and New York City on our first trip out of Athens, Georgia. Both bands had stopped for the night at an enormous Holiday Inn near the Canadian border. The generic corridors seemed to stretch for miles. The next day, we were making our first trip across the border to our very first Canadian show. The members of Pylon and our roadie sound person were all staying in one room. Guys were 2 per bed. I got the rollaway cot, but it was my own bed and not the floor. We were used to sleeping on floors. Actually, getting to stay in hotels for the whole tour was a huge step up for us. Hugo Burnham, who was the drummer for the Gang of Four, and his brother Jolien, who was the Gang of Four tour manager, invited us to come watch TV and hang out in their room. I noticed that Hugo had a nicely typed up list of their equipment and serial numbers sitting on top of the TV. I became worried because we hadn't done anything like that. I brought it to the attention to the rest of the band so we could make an equipment list too. I remember drinking beer, chatting, and watching a documentary about Jimi Hendrix on the television. I'm sure that some rebel yell was involved too. It was a lot of fun. The British band Gang of Four, oh my goodness. After a while, most of the members of Pylon had drifted back to the hotel room. Curtis Crow, who was our drummer, and I remained behind, but Michael thinks he was there too. Eventually, realizing it was getting late, we decided to head back to our room. I guess we were inebriated. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that we were. On arrival to our room, we suddenly realized that neither one of us had a key. We banged on the door for a while to no avail. Our fellow bandmates were sleeping pretty deeply and obviously didn't hear us. Curtis and I put our heads together, swaying in the hall, and decided that we should go back to Hugo's room and ask if we could sleep on the floor. Heading back down the hall, we passed an open door. On the bed lay John King, the lead singer of the Gang of Four, fully dressed in a black suit and sleeping on his back with all the lights blazing overhead. Curtis and I both agreed that John wouldn't mind. He was our friend. It was very convenient, too. We carefully locked and latched the door for him and turned off all the lights and crawled into the other bed fully clothed and went to sleep. Sometime early the next morning, someone was shaking me. I blearily opened my eyes. Cold early morning light was pouring through the window. Ouch! A guy was angrily yelling, "Who the fuck are you?" Curtis and I both sat up and looked at each other and realized, oh my gosh, this was not John King. Just someone that looked a lot like him. We jumped up and apologized and ran back out to our room. This time when we knocked on our door, someone woke up and let us in.
That's pretty amazing.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to our inaugural episode of Load In, Load Out. Check out our show page located at Kindercore.com. If you're enjoying the show so far, consider pressing the donate button or peruse our online store. Thanks again for listening. And now, back to our show.
When nights come, they spend them staring straight up at the sky.
So you also told us beforehand that there was this sort of legendary book of poetry that was floating around something.
I don't know. How long is this podcast? Is it like 2 hours long?
As long as you need it to be.
Yeah. Well, my memories of being on the road, contain like everything, but a lot of it has to do with the van lag, I guess it's called. Especially if you go out west, periodically like we did, just the hours.
Those long drives.
Mm-hmm.
And some of us took turns driving, but, I didn't necessarily like driving, but I don't know, at least there was some variety there. But just that sitting around part was pretty bad. Anyway, this was actually in Pylon number 2 when we got together and we were on the road opening for REM on their Green Tour, like Green Tour Part 2, actually, because they'd already toured the entire U.S., Europe, Japan, Southeast Asia. Then they just started doing it all over again because the album blew up and everything. So they went on a tour to like a secondary market, I think. And we did about, I think somewhere around like 15 or so of those shows. And so we had an RV, and
Excuse me.
that was a really...
That was a belt.
That means the beard's working.
This RV trip started, like the first show was in Arizona, like some big outdoor festival. It was huge. And then we worked our way back. But I think Pylon did some other dates on the way out there on our own or something. I can't remember.
I remember it was Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Whatever. Someplace out there.
It was like almost
Desert.
to California, but not quite.
Yeah.
Almost made it.
So on the trip, I was trying to read this book. It had come out. It was it took place in Athens, but it's I guess you call this fantasy fiction.
Okay.
Yeah, because the people who are reviewing it in here, like one of the reviewers was Fantasy Review. And so this is a genre that I didn't know or care anything about, but it was written in Athens, and then it used the Athens music scene nominally because each of the chapter titles is a song title from unattributed. But like chapter 3 is called Dance This Mess Around, and chapter 1 was Pilgrimage or whatever, that REM song.
Yeah.
Chapter 2 is Toys in the Attic. Is that a...
No, that's
an Aerosmith song, but
Cat?
didn't REM cover that on Dead Letter Office or something? Or it was released later on that, I think, yeah.
I don't know, but one or
Yeah.
two of these chapters in here are named after Pylon songs even. So it's like very kind of neat to
That'd
be
have been kind of
included in
exciting,
something
right?
like that.
Yeah.
And I thought I would read it.
What's the book called?
Oh, it's called The Griffin King by Tom Dietz or
Okay.
something. And it's not his first book. It came out in 89, I think. Anyway, maybe it's just not for me. Maybe it's just like the storyline was like all fantastic. Like it had something to do with the past and the present and a spell and a wizard or something. And so I sort of was having a hard time getting through it.
That wasn't working for you, huh? You weren't into the past, present, and the wizards.
So somewhere around halfway through the book, I was like, oh, God, I'm going to write my own stuff. And so I grabbed a Sharpie and I started writing on the pages of the book itself. And I started a book called, a book on top of this book called Edward's Poetry by Michael Lachowski. And chapter 1 is called The Early Years. So here's number 1. That's its title. A card is just a card. A face is just a face, but a card with a face is lower than an ace.
Very profound.
And that was, let's see when that one was written. That was written on November 7th, and on the same day, I apparently wrote a second poem. It's called Number 2.
I already burnt my first title for the day. I'm good. I'm just going to go with 2 for this one.
Jennifer, our manager, what should we say to her? Oh, hi, Jenny, I got to pee. Then walk behind a conifer. But these are actually all based on things that were happening, because like what happened is that we were traveling out west, and at some point she came to meet us and we saw her, but immediately also had to pee.
And now it's immortalized in the pages of the Griffin King.
Yeah.
Edward's poetry.
So there's two more poems in that chapter, but then chapter 2 is called The Later Poems.
Later that afternoon or that week.
The next day.
The next day, sure. This late period, Edward's late period.
Yeah, and I picked one out here. Mind you, I didn't really flip through this until we sat down to do this recording. So maybe I'm not even reading the best ones. I mean, we can hope. Let me find.
It's working for me.
Okay, here's an example, sort of the form. Number 7. Quick, look outside. There's a groundhog. Oh, well, you missed it.
How many times is, oh, well, you missed it?
Oh, I know.
Time to sleep like a log. But that actually happened, because I think one of us saw a groundhog and tried to get everyone else to look, but by the time they did, it was too late.
You're going 50 miles an hour.
Go back to sleep.
Oh, forget it.
So anyway, the main function that these poems provided is that I would write them, and then I would be laughing while I was writing it. And then I'd get to the end of it, and I'd read it, and I'd just start laughing, and I'd be like crying and laughing. And then like Curtis or Vanessa would ask to see it, and I'd like hand them the book, and then they would read it, and then they would start. And apparently, sort of after the fact, just to mimic the form of, the novel I was writing in, I got some quotes from some reviews that were added to the front of the book.
Okay, good.
So one is I Get Misty-Eyed, and that was written by Curtis Crowe, our drummer. And then I Get Soaky Pantsed. That was written by Randy.
Soaky pants.
Okay, so let's just take a chance here. Chapter 4, Back to the Basics.
The career spanning.
Okay, I'm just going to just take a chance. This one was written a few days later. Number 19. You think you know how to sleep in a bed. That's not where you put your head. Staying in a motel can be hell, but you know what housekeeping said. And then this one gets experimental in its form because it uses a sticker to
that's fantastic.
Multimedia, like
Sure.
the word rock, which is this ragged, kind of rough-hewn sort of radio station word.
Yeah, did you cut that out of a radio station bumper sticker?
No, this is a die-cut sticker that just says nothing but rock.
Just rock,
but it's fade. It's a fade from yellow to orange. Tick-tock, check the clock. We're on a schedule. We got to rock. We're heading to Macon, clippity-clop. Tick-tock, check the clock. So that's when we went to play in Macon opening for REM. And then chapter 4 is called Week 4 and Rising. And that's about playing at the Fox. So that was pretty much the end of that tour. Oh, wait, we ended up going all the way up to Virginia and stuff on our own. But there was another like van-related thing. There was a bunch of van-related stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's a good category.
Yeah. I only have a few of them committed to memory, but when we had this one main van, when we were in Pylon 1, it was white Dodge van, 3 on the tree, and no air conditioning, but it had already had shag carpet like put on the ceiling and everything, with one of those like crank up bubble window things on the top.
Okay.
And Curtis had built a cage in the back that had a little
nice. A little
small bed in front of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we had a lot of problems with that band. And I'd kind of like to talk about how some of that made it into the lyrics of K. But anyway, what I was really thinking is that when that band was, in some ways, it was not our friend at times. It caused us strife and, you know. Anyway, so I started thinking that I wanted us to come up with those phrases that make it appear like you backwards engineer the name of the car brand to make it sound like it was an acronym.
Okay.
So like the ones that I grew up with were Ford was fix or repair daily.
Right.
And the only other one from then I can remember was GTO, and it stood for Get Tools Out.
Okay. Yeah.
So like kind of inspired by that, I was like, what would be the ones for Dodge? Because we had a Dodge van, and so we were like driving along, and we came up with Dead or Dying Gas Eliminator.
That's good, man. That's a good one.
Doesn't operate despite gear engagement.
Nice.
And there was another one, but then the final one, like the van lag generated one, was Dog on Dope Gets Even.
That is fantastic. Yeah, those are great. Like, you know, people always like, you know, I'm a Ford guy or I'm a Dodge guy or whatever, you know, and then compete over those. And we were in my family and I were in Florida. We were driving our Honda, and some older guy's walking across the parking lot, and he bangs on my window, and I was like, you know, okay, roll down the window, and he goes, Honda. Had one, never did again. We were just like, okay.
Just thought I'd share that with you,
exactly. I was like,
stranger.
okay, thanks. All right, roll the window back up. See you later.
I want to hear those for like Volkswagen.
Right,
You
yeah,
know,
you gotta
like
work hard for that,
really
yeah.
long ones. Like it could go on and on, and it would be a lot like what were the lyrics you had in My Very Excited Mother?
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of
That was
thing.
from the third record. It was a acronym.
Or mnemonic device.
Yeah, lefty loosey, righty tighty, and then it was Your Very Excited Mother.
My Very Excited
My
Mother.
Very Excited Mother.
So for all the
Just
planets.
sat on needles and pins.
Which
It
is
was
the
like
planets.
Oh, okay.
Mars,
Yes.
Venus, Earth, etc.
Yeah.
So that was back when pins was stood for
That was
Pluto.
sloganistic.
Which, and I think I've heard that is Pluto's maybe back in the game.
Yeah, it's
again
back.
as a
It's
planet
back.
again. Yeah,
It's back and forth.
it's it's touch and go there for a little while.
They brought
The
Pluto
solar system
back.
and
Yeah.
Pluto have a very complicated relationship. It's one of those on again, off again things.
One of the best things about being on tour is getting to sample food from around the country. Touring bands are often led by their hosts to out-of-the-way local favorites, leading to some unexpected dining opportunities. When we put the culinary question to Pylon, they reminisce not about a particular dish, but about a particular touring tradition.
The dependence that that you had on your wait staff in the restaurants just became key. I mean, even I think more so than the food.
Yeah.
It just turned into this like strivingly, you know, you're just, oh, please bring us a glass of water. Just please, 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 like just waiting. But when we had really good servers, we were so excited about it. And we used to just say, like, we should get some trophies made and give them out to the servers. So when we were leaving on that REM tour, I was like, let's get the trophies made. And so we had about, 6 of them made. And it said,
World's best.
wait staff of the tour award or something.
Yeah.
That's great. And so you brought them with you.
We had them in the RV, and we'd go in, and we'd be sitting there having our meal, and we'd start looking at each other, going like, "I think we may have a candidate."
Got a contender. Somebody's in the race.
Oh
That's
my
great.
goodness. One of the ladies almost cried and gave an acceptance speech. She was so
Oh,
happy.
that's amazing. See, and you and it was fun and funny, but also probably totally touched somebody. So
Right.
That's
I
awesome.
mean, as servers, how often do you get actually appreciated?
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
Much less an actual trophy. That's
Right.
fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, our touring days, were during the era, like the pre-Giuliani mayor of New York era, where everybody said everything was, especially after the fact, they were just like, oh God, that was like when New York was just the worst. It was so dangerous. There was, the subways were covered head top to bottom in graffiti. There were garbage strikes and, going on, and just the
huge homeless problem.
yeah.
I mean,
But it was really kind of worse later on because of crack.
yeah.
In a way, like Pylon 1 was supposed to be so bad, but then when we came back in the late 80s, we'd go back to some, a lot of the same people worked in these clubs, and they're like, hey, it's not like it was anymore. I mean, whatever you used to do, it's all different now because of crack.
Yeah.
Because the ability to purchase crack with like a small amount of money meant that the pettiness of the crime would just drop. It just drove down, like the level at which people break a window was like for 50 cents. And so, we went through all these like supposedly really bad eras and stuff, and being in all these cities. And given that, I think we just like were, we lucked out. I mean, everything.
Yeah.
We always had a really good time, I think. And,
That's awesome.
we took care of each other. We were almost always together. We didn't really kind of split up and go do our own thing during the days. We tended to, we definitely ate all of our meals together and stuff. So we were real sort of a kind of family oriented way of being
That's
on
really
tour
great,
for the
yeah.
most part.
Whether you love people or not, I mean, it's just, I say this all the time, like, you can't experience the way that you get close to someone until you've been on tour with them. When
Yeah.
you're stuck in a van with this person for 24 hours, for
The
2
good, the
months
bad,
at
the
a time,
stinky,
whether you
everything.
love each other, you always love each other, whether you like each other or not is one thing, but there is this bond that happens that way that I think that even spouses don't always feel, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, another thing that I was going to mention about our van, Curtis did all the work on our van pretty much, and so we got all this stuff done and attended to, and we were going to drive all the way out west. I don't know if it was our first trip out west. It could have been, but probably not. But anyway, so we didn't even, I don't think, get to the Alabama line before our first and reverse gears quit working. So this is like a van with 3 gears, 3 forward and the reverse, manual shift like on the steering column. So that's what 3 on a tree means.
Yeah.
And so here we are, we're headed to California, and it's like Alabama, and we only have 2nd and 3rd gear forward. So we had to stop and get gas in Alabama, and we were terrified because, like, being from Georgia, you're afraid of Alabama.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah.
So we were afraid. We were like, oh, God, like, we're stopping here, and this is, like, really, really country. Oh, God. And it was not like a big fancy gas station. It was get off the exit and go down like this gravel. I mean, it was really semi-paved or gravelly kind of road that one of the pathways into it. And there was a different one, there was 2 ways into it. So we got in there and we got gas, and, it was like a bunch of old timers and stuff, like with some younger guys that worked there and sort of hung out there. And we paid for the gas, and they were all like very cordial but didn't say much. And we got back in the van, and we were switching drivers, and now I was going to drive, and so I started driving in 2nd gear with all these people, all the gear in the back, and it was like kind of up this hill, and I start going up the hill, and they're like, Michael, maybe you should just like put it in neutral, roll back, and let's go out the other way. So I rolled back and very gently, but rolled right into this Corvette. That was like at the garage, at the gas station, like not a customer, but just kind of there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh crap, oh God. And so we get out, and the old man and the other people, they just all come walking over there real slow, and they just kind of like look down in there, and the thing has got this like pretty big dent in it, about the size of like a pie or something. And he's
It
like,
was a Camaro, right?
oh, I'm sorry, it was a Camaro. Yeah. Excuse me.
A bitch and Camaro.
Sorry, but that's pertinent.
Sure. Okay.
But so he's like, Jimmy, go get me that mallet from the garage, So he brings out this mallet, or go get me the key to the trunk or something. And he pops the trunk up and reaches in and bangs out this dent.
Yeah.
And it bangs out like pretty good. Like almost all of it comes popping back out, except for that there's a little bit of a crinkle in the paint because it had gotten, cracked when it dented in. And they're sitting there looking at it, and they're like, yeah, I think that's the way it looked when Jimmy brought it in. And they turned to us, y'all have a good day.
Really? Wow. Man.
And so we drove this thing all the way to California with only second and third gear through strategic parking, not going
With no
down
reverse.
into lowly
Wow.
positioned, gas stations and everything.
Yeah.
And we had some gigs and everything. And so we finally get this like break in our schedule out in LA. And we're like, okay, we need to take care of this. So we were going to take our van to La Brea Dodge and have them fix it.
There's like a
And-
sign that says to La Brea Tar Pits, where we were parked.
Just driving into the tar pits.
So we're
Done with it.
Yeah.
Done with
start
this,
over.
man.
We'd already been by La Brea Dodge. Like, can you fix this in X number of days? Yeah. How much will it cost? Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll come back. We just got to go rent a car. So we go to this like car rental place in Hollywood, and just go walking in and sit down. Like all five of us, because four of us plus our roadie. And I'm like, hey, yeah, we need to rent a car. Okay, well, let's just have you fill out all this paperwork, and I need to see your license, and now I just need a credit card.
Huh.
And we were all sitting there, and I was like, well, we don't have a credit card, but I could give you like a couple traveler's checks.
Uh-huh.
Like how
we
about
were on a cash only basis.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
yeah? So how about like $200 of traveler's checks?
Just
so-
for them to hold in case something goes wrong, right?
Well, we were about to take a car
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, it was like a station wagon.
We're gonna like drive away with a car and leave them with $200.
And it was this really cute girl. She had like red hair, and I remember she had little freckles.
So we just start talking with her, and she's like, "You guys sound like you're from the South," and she blah blah blah. Yeah, Oh well, I was in a sorority at the University of Georgia. Oh my gosh. Oh
What?
gosh. Blah blah blah. And so she finally was like, "Well, I shouldn't probably do this, but yeah, you can take the car, and I'll just take these travelers."
Yeah. Oh, wow. Excellent.
What?
I would say I would like to maybe mention this like crazy time when we went to Central Park. That was wild. There were so many things in that. Like we were sitting around, my phone, Randy's in my phone, or I don't know, maybe Curtis was. No, it was Randy. Probably still lived there. Anyway, Randy got married fairly early on and all this and moved out. But then Curtis moved in, so there's always like two Pylon people living there. And we had an answering machine on the phone.
It was the Pylon party line.
Nice.
Yeah.
Pylon party line.
Yeah, the B-52s called up like, the plastics were supposed to open for us in Central Park, and they can't get through customs. It was a Japanese band.
Yeah.
And, can you guys come open for us at the Dr. Pepper free outdoor legendary summer concerts at Central Park that apparently, I don't know how many people were there.
It's the biggest audience to date we ever played for. I heard it was 500,000.
Wow.
There
Wow.
were people in the trees, people as far as you could see.
Wow.
They were up in the buildings.
That's amazing.
I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, when's the show? Oh, it's like in 48 hours.
Right, I
or
was going to
something.
say, because you were in Athens at this point, right? So you had
We
to
were
get
in
to New
Athens,
York.
yeah. So we didn't have a van. This was really early on. Like back then, if Pylon was going to play anywhere, like down the street or in Washington, D.C., New York, Boston, Philly, we had to go and get together and have like at least 5 practice sessions because like we had to, we were so raw. We had to like retrain ourselves and then relearn our songs and then like put that extra little bit of like competency on it so that we could actually go perform them. So without the benefit of any of that or a van, we borrowed a van from John Underwood or Watt King. I can't remember which one of them helped us out that time. And and Vanessa had to quit her job.
Wow.
I had to quit. I worked at weekends on DuPont, and I had to quit because it was a weekend, and I was leaving without notice.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
we just got in the van and just
when you got there, right? I mean,
drove straight.
Well, sorta. I mean, we had to drive straight through, and I was driving when we got to Manhattan, and it was this aggravating thing. Like, we were practically late for sound check. Okay, so it's like mid-afternoon, and you could see where it all was, but we were on all these like Central Park was designed, by Park Design.
We could have used a cell phone,
and we're just driving around all these roads. It's like we cannot figure out how to get there. Like, where's like the roadway that would go to that stage? And we're like, okay, screw it. Just like I went over the curb and like cross country.
Yes.
Central Park.
Excellent.
There's the stage.
Here comes the band from Georgia. Freewheeling across the grass. I'm just picturing like people out sunbathing or like diving out of the way.
I know.
That's so great.
Pulling straight up to the front of the stage, loading out.
Look, there's the carousel.
Yeah.
The ice skating rink.
But tell them about the show.
Oh, well, they showed us where to go. We sound checked, and then they gave us like a little trailer room or something. Then they brought Ricky Wilson in there with all of his guitars, and he had a ton at that point.
Yeah.
I was like, Ricky, what's going on? He said, there's too much hairspray in the other room. And so...
Get his guitars away from the hairspray and get him in the pylon room.
So he came in with us, and he was
great.
real quiet. We were kind of quiet people at that time. And when we went out, and it's just like an enormous sea of people.
Yeah.
And we get through the first song, and I'm so tired. I hadn't slept in...
Right, because you've been awake the whole time.
Yeah. I've been awake. I've been excited and nervous and all of that. And I look down, and there are the plastics, like in the 4th row.
Oh, no. They got through.
And they'd made it through security or something.
Oh.
And I just waved at them and said, hey, y'all. And I was like waving to people I knew and saying, hey, Karen, hey, plastics. And
but you guys played.
And we played, and it came off okay.
Yeah.
Nobody threw anything, or
none of the members of the plastics threw anything at you.
It wasn't really a very good, performance, I'll say, but
we made it. And
sure.
we did it.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And then we got to see the B-52s as the sun was going down in Central Park.
Wow.
We had like tons of good experiences. That same tour manager would wake us up so damn early, but the shows were early. We were all done by 11 o'clock at night or something.
It was dark at 3:30 in the afternoon in December.
Yeah, and we were like, we couldn't go to bed at that early, and the pubs would close. So anyway, on the reverse end of that, he would wake us up at like 8 or something, 8:30, and say, "Come on, we have to get in the car because you have to go do an interview in some other city."
Sure.
And we'd just be half asleep, and we'd get to this place, and we hadn't had breakfast or anything. And the journalist would be there, and it would always be a pub. It'd be about 10 in the morning, and he would just immediately say, "Yeah, what do you want? Do you want a bitter or stout or a lager or whatever?" And he would go in there and get all of us pints of beer.
Yeah.
And at 10 in the morning, we would all have like 2 pints of beer.
Starting the day off right.
It was really weird.
Pint of bitter.
And and we had so many articles. I mean, it was every week they had New Music Express and Melody Maker and something else, and we would be in it because we were there for 3 weeks. We were always in it for the whole 3 weeks. It was great.
That must have been really exciting.
Yeah, it was
That's
really.
cool.
We did about 17 shows in like a 3-week period, something like
That's
that.
awesome. Did you do the whole? Did you go to Scotland and Wales?
No,
and
but
just,
one of the fun
UK?
things we got to do is when we went to Leeds, we stayed with Hugo Burnham at his place, the Gang of Four drummer.
Yeah.
So most of the time we
And it was actually
stayed
him.
in London.
Not
Most
like
of the
in
time we
hotel.
were working or driving around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't get to see Stonehenge, but we saw Canterbury.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
We didn't get to do much.
we ate a lot of beans. They have beans, like
Yeah.
pork and beans with eggs
Right.
in the morning with these
Oh, yeah,
sausages.
The full British breakfast not for me.
But it's better than this other thing I saw on the menu. You know, a buddy is a sandwich.
Uh-huh.
And there was a fried buddy. There was a sandwich that was
Inside of
two
a
pieces
sandwich?
of bread with a piece of fried bread in between. It
Well,
was
the
the least
bread
expensive
sandwich?
thing on the menu.
The thing that got me is like we were with Hugo at a sandwich shop, and they had kind of a long list of sandwiches, and they all came with chips, which is their name for French fries.
Right.
And so all the sandwiches, it says on the board, come with chips. And so I'm reading down, and there's the different sandwiches, and one of them was called a chip sandwich. I was like, Hugo, what in the hell's a chip sandwich? Well, it's just like chips inside some bread.
With chips on the
And
side.
I was like, does it come with chips on the side? And he goes, well, yeah, they all come with chips on the side.
Yeah, why wouldn't it?
But I think food's
that's
better
pretty
now.
great.
But back then, there were in the winter especially, there were not a whole lot of vegetables. And
Yeah.
we got to some place, and I almost cried because I saw on the menu that I could get a salad. And they brought this itty bitty cup, and it had like what looked like 4 leaf clovers in it. It was like
saddest salad in the
watercress. It's like, ooh,
Yeah.
get
I
me
don't
back
know.
home. But everybody was really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had a couple experiences touring in England, and it was in the early 2000s, and the food was still terrible, in my opinion.
Yeah, a sandwich over there is butter with cucumbers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was odd, and I mean everybody was so fantastic, but it just there was a lot of getting used to things there.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
This is how you shower, with this weird thing that's hanging down out of your
Yeah,
But,
we had, I think we had more fun. Like our like center was New York City.
Mm-hmm.
We used to be able to play a bunch of different venues in a 10 or so day period. And so we spent a lot of time like kind of treating it as a home base as well, because we'd stay at the Iroquois Hotel, and then we'd like go over and play in Hoboken, and then come back to Iroquois, and then go play Manhattan, and then we'd check out and go to Boston, but then check back in like a day later and hang out more at the Iroquois. The Iroquois Hotel was recommended to us by the B-52s, and all the other bands stayed there. So who did we see
Anybody that
there?
FBI booked was there, like XTC,
yeah,
the Pretenders,
Wow.
the Clash,
which was probably like
Gang of Four.
Yeah,
And Motorhead.
Motorhead.
Motorhead, that's right. I forgot about that.
They were in the bar.
Of course they were. Where else would they be?
And Iggy Pop.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and we stayed there so much that we got to know the staff knew us, and it was just great. It was so cheap. They had this one suite that we would rent, and that makes it sound fancy because all it was instead of just one room, it was two of them that were extended out, and it had 4 twin beds, and so it's perfect because that and a rollaway was all we needed. Yeah, it was great. So we really loved going to New York, and we had our favorite diners that we ate breakfast at. So we really did we were there often enough that we got to know the wait staff in the morning at the diners. That was pre-trophy.
That was pre-trophy. Yeah. That's great.
Nothing like a New York bagel.
Oh yeah, boy! I lived in New York for a couple of years.
Yeah,
and
this was located close to Times Square, so we like to go to Times Square and play video games in all the arcades, and then we could also walk over to Tin Pan Alley where all the music shops are.
Wow, yeah.
Like Manny's and
So this is like the New Yorker
Look at
that
Kier.
is still kind of romanticized today, that might not necessarily be there anymore.
No, it's not, because we were staying in Manhattan.
Right.
Yeah, which I mean,
Yeah.
I was just thinking like
All
what
the
it would cost to
venues
stay
were in
a hotel
Manhattan.
Manhattan now.
Yeah, all the venues were there too. you
Yeah.
know, so yeah.
It's not like that. But the last time Pylon were together, we went and had to stay in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the
was that?
last time we were there, we stayed at the Pod Hotel, which
Oh,
was
the
on
Pod.
Second Avenue, and it's in the 60s or 50s.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
That was fun.
yeah, that was easy enough.
Yeah, that sounds pretty nice.
But yeah, touring was great because I associate it with our live shows, and our live shows were really what Pylon was mostly about.
Yeah.
And so we've never had a live recording before until this one that's about to come out. So it's not quite, obviously it's not as good as being at a show. I mean, even a bad show is better live in person
Sure.
than a recording of a live show. But at least the recording that we have coming out is a good performance in a
Yeah.
significant show.
Yeah, that's exciting. It's
and a
big
fairly
moment in the
good
history of the
recording as
band,
well.
And now after all these years, for the generation of people that have grown up not without the opportunity to see you guys, now they can experience the live
Sorta,
experience.
yeah.
At least right to the as great a degree as possible.
Yeah, there wasn't a microphone out there in the room, so it makes it seem like the crowd was kind of like a little
They're all right.
quiet.
They're kind of into it. Not super stoked,
Yeah.
That's
Like-
great. Well, cool. Well, thank you guys for being here. Is there anything we didn't touch on that you want to talk about, or no?
No, except for, I love the idea of your podcast and a tour story podcast. That just seems like it could go like, it could just focus on that one part of
Yeah.
bands. It seems like you guys could get material from a lot of people from all over the place and just keep this going for a really long time. I love it.
The idea
Thanks,
is that
yeah.
like these are the stories that you don't hear in interviews. These are stories that
Yeah.
you don't really hear unless you're friends with the band, or
Right.
not even when you're friends with the bands. It's usually if you're a touring band yourself and you swap these stories back and
Yeah.
forth. And some of them go into like legends within the bands, but fans typically don't hear it. You typically don't hear them in the interviews.
Yeah.
These are
Yeah.
stories that just you never really hear.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find a good closing.
Sure.
poem.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
that
close
would
this
be
out with
perfect.
something from
And
Let's
you can always
see.
like cut out all the
No, every bit of it'll be in there.
take your time and pick a really
Oh, this one is bittersweet.
Oh.
Number 34 is the last one in the book. It was November 19th. Van heads home. Van makes drone. Lights are on. Tour is gone.
That's fantastic. Beautiful. Well, thank you guys for being here. It was really exciting. And everybody, check out the live album.
Where can we find you? Like, there's certain things online or
Yeah,
particular
Pylon is
recordings?
at wearepylon.com. And Chunklet Industries is the best place to track down the record.
Okay,
Great.
cool. You have like Twitter handles that you want people to follow you on?
Mine
or
is my
Facebook or
last
anything?
name.
You want to spell that for people? It's a bit of a challenge.
mine is Pylon Girl, but it's
Okay.
not very, I don't know, I wasn't thinking when I did it. Not very clever.
Hey, it works.
I
beg to
think my
differ.
name was like taken.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, those names go right
I
away.
don't want to be Vanessa Hay, number 2047.
Gee, why not? That's, yeah.
Well, mine is spelled Lachowski.
Fantastic. Yeah, it always drives me nuts when people are on, a podcast or the radio. Okay, yeah, look me up, but my Twitter handle is like at whatever, and they say it, and it's like, okay, hold up. How in the world do you spell that? So, yeah. Well, great. Thank you guys for being here. This was fantastic.
Thank you,
Really
guys.
appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And thank you, gentle listener, for listening to the first episode of Load In, Load Out, a tour story podcast produced in Athens, Georgia by me, Bill Fortenberry, and hosted by Ryan Lewis and Cash Carter. Suggestions, threats, complaints, aspersions, innuendos, hyperbole, and low-grade verbal shenanigans can be directed to our Twitter, located at Load In, Load Out. You'll find show notes and other pertinent information at Kindercore.com, and we'll be back soon with new episodes featuring Sam Paulson from Manor Astroman and Jeff Tobias from Sun Watchers. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.